Hey everybody, welcome to Watching Code Office Hours. This is session number 47. The document I have broadcast right here, you can find it in the YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube live, in the docs link, you will find the document. And from here, you can call in. So if you want to, there's a link to call in. So if you want to call in like Ben and James and ask your question, this is the best way to ask your question, then just click the Google Doc. Second thing is join the Facebook group to get info about upcoming sessions. Sometimes their schedule changes and that type of thing. So if you want to keep up to date, you want to get on that. That's it for logistics. The student of the week this week is Oren, and he just had a really thoughtful response in the Slack, and I'll read an excerpt. And the context is that the transition from practical JavaScript to the paid content is, for a lot of students, it's quite big. It's a lot. It goes from like practical JavaScript is, I think, relatively very easy course, and then it goes to the premium content, which is a lot more serious, and a lot of students are having trouble with that. And I think the thing that was really good from Oren's reply in our Slack group was kind of acknowledging the things that I can improve, which is managing that transition to be smoother. But also, I thought it was really thoughtful the way he kind of looked at the pros and cons with it. So he said, to be honest, I felt the same at the first video. He's referring to something another student said. When I say we only read the code and specifically 100-minute videos were scary. And also, he also mentioned that some of my talks are boring. So I apologize for that. But I have a large database of courses and tried most of them. And now I'm at 65% of premium and want to take a break. And this is a lot harder to read than I thought. But but the whole point of it is that stick with the course as it gets better, and the level of depth and detail that the content goes is very different. And I think part of what makes it intimidating is also what makes it really valuable. So Oren said, this is not just a JavaScript course. It teaches you programming principles. And even if you don't do JavaScript in 10 years, the principles outlined in the first video will remain with whatever language app framework you use in the future. And I really like that section because Oren really just hit it perfectly. And then this one, I felt very lucky that I've taken the course from Gordon and know how those functions work, but mostly understood how his teaching method stands out. I really appreciate it and hope he will continue his courses. So thanks, Oren. I think the point here is that the negative feedback, positive feedback, both very helpful, and is not all good. And so from hearing feedback from you all, that's really honest. It's really helping me to get better. So thanks, Oren, for that, and calling me out on some of the more boring videos that I have. So that is, thanks, Oren. The public service announcement is also related to another discussion we had from the member Slack group. And there's a lot of anxiety around being able to build applications from scratch. I just talked to Ben about it. Some students don't have any trouble with it, but I think that the students that don't have trouble with building things from scratch tend to have had some past experience. If you're starting truly, if watching code is like the first thing you've ever done, expecting to go through practical JavaScript and then rebuild the app from scratch, or go through the other apps we build with the videos, then expecting to build it from scratch, is, I don't think, the most realistic expectation, and it's not the most productive thing you could do. It's valuable, but the most important thing you could do is to focus on understanding every single line of code at the level of the debugger. So if you can go through every single line of code and kind of know exactly what, like almost a play-by-play, explain what's going to happen the same way, like the same information you get from going line by line through the debugger. If you can do that, that is much more valuable. It doesn't require memorization. It's really focused on understanding. The reason that's important is because it doesn't really matter if you can build it from scratch. I think it's really nice. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to do, but the ability to understand every single thing is far more important. That's because then if you want to go back and look at anything, you can borrow things, copy and paste with confidence because you know what is doing. I see a lot of students make this mistake too. They can build it from scratch, but they've memorized it, and that's not very helpful. I think the value from building something from scratch is not like memorizing all the methods you need and even memorizing the structure. The value is actually from breaking a big task down into small pieces. And so I think also if you do want to build things from scratch, that's the thing you want to emphasize more than anything else. Try to break things into the smallest steps you possibly can, and then keep on doing it until there's no way you can break things down further. And then you can look at bite-sized problems that you have and look things up as you need to. It's not like you want to program as if you don't have the internet. That's silly and a fantasy. So I just wanted to make that comment. New stuff. So for the students that are caught up with everything and want to continue and go further, there's a new Beasts assignment. It's a twist on accounting to fix. That's a method in the Accounting.js library that we go through for members. And so that's new. You can take a look at that. And also, there's some new YouTube videos added, linked here. So one is what I think of code challenge websites. I hate them. You can go watch why. And then I talk about how to manage your learning time, because a lot of people get this wrong. So you can go watch that for more detail. So usually I go into open questions, but since James is here and he already completed the Beasts challenge, number 7, I wanted to just go through that problem with you all and see how it is, kind of like a code review. And so I'll have James come on, talk about it, and then I'll add some comments and feedback. And I think this is helpful for some of the other students I've submitted, and also some of the students that will submit, because it seems like that there may have been a little bit of confusion with how this is supposed to work. So hopefully I can clear that up, and then we'll go into open questions. So you can imagine this is an open question. The first one is code review on a better code review on that. Fixed. Okay, James, are you ready?
Let me just unmute. Perfect. I am ready. Hey guys, just wanted to say hello to everybody out there first. All right, let me share my screen, and I'll also provide the link. I did. I posted it on Hyperdev or GoMix, so I'll share that link out there as well.
Can you paste it? If you paste it in the Hangout chat, I'll paste it in the Google Doc. Okay.
Perfect. So, I mean, that's a pretty funny name too, Thunderbutter, as an aside, but okay. So when everybody pulls it up, or if you want, am I sharing my screen?
No, not yet.
Share it.
So before we go into your code, can you really briefly explain what this is, like what the point of it was?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the Accounting.js Beast challenge, or the Accounting.to-fix Beast challenge, would be probably more of a better description than what I can provide. So if anybody wants to check out the GitHub, the Beast challenge number 7, feel free to, but I'll do my best. It's basically, what we wanted to do was in the Accounting.js, I think it was 14, if I'm not mistaken, Gordon.
13.
13. Okay, so we looked at the to fixed method within Accounting.js. And this was a to fixed method that the author created. It wasn't the native to fixed that is on the number.prototype, I believe. So anyway, what we noticed was the author was using a multiplication a step to round his values, and we noticed that there were actually some issues in that as well because of the approximation being multiplied. So what Gordon did was provided another solution that was part of the it was through exponential form, and so we saw the multiplication of the approximation in the exponential form. This challenge was to recreate the to fixed with string manipulation only. So we were not using any multiplication or exponential form.
Okay, cool. And if you want to have the full background on it, then the link in the new stuff for this week's meeting, I'll share my screen. You can see the context right there. But yeah, it's really based on one of the lessons for it's based on the newest lesson for members.
Yeah. Okay, so is my screen okay, big enough? Can everybody see it? Okay. This is the function. I can walk you through it, but what might be best would just be to go through like an example and kind of see and walk it through the debugger and just kind of along with talking through it, see like hard examples. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Okay. So
yeah, I think starting by explaining or even just walking through your test cases.
Okay, yeah. So we can walk through my test cases. Let's see. Okay, so in the Accounting.js video, we noticed that there were some weird quirks to numbers being approximated. So I included the, I want to say it's the first four, maybe the first three, I can't really truly remember, but I included those. And what they're designed to do is I'm basically invoking the function that I've created, better2fixed, and it will return as a string. So I should have probably wrote that in the description, but my descriptions are pretty short. They're designed to return each string value. So the first one, if you pass in 0.615 with a precision of 2, meaning the fraction to the right of the decimal will return 2 values, then I expect the to fixed function to return 0.62 as a string value, and that lines up with what the Accounting.js to fixed method returns.
Okay, just for clarification, because I think probably most people watching are not familiar with the idiosyncrasies of the native to fixed. Can you show what the native to fixed returns when you have precision 2?
Yeah. So if I was to do a number, say 1 point,
just use the same example in your test, 0.615.
0.615, and then dot to fixed. And if I pass in 2, it's going to return a string value just like this. And as you notice that you would expect it, and in Gordon's video, you'd expect it to be 0.62 with the rounding, but it due to the approximation returns 0.61.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so that is the native to fixed. Are we good on the tests, or do we want to see any more or talk through any more?
Yeah, I think these are just different edge cases that can come up. They're kind of random because of the nature of floating point numbers. So, each of these test cases are really important, but if you're just looking at them, like there's no reason that you would think to test, 0.2356, whatever. So there's no point for us to go through all of them, but
Yeah.
it could help to, like you suggested at the beginning, go through the debugger for one of them. And so if you want to, break point one of them and just walk us through.
Yeah, I think going through the debugger for the first one would be a good example. And then I'd like to show an edge case that I found, and it kind of caused me to really spend some time trying to figure out the intricacies of string manipulation and getting this to work properly. So I'll show the last test as well, if that's okay.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so I'll just pass in, let's see, I'll just pass this in right here. Debugger, and then if I do 0.615, and I'll pass in 2. Expand this out. So we'll step into the function. So this is the better to fixed based on Gordon's Accounting.js video, and what the function takes two parameters or two arguments, the value and then the precision, how we want to format the decimal points. So when you step in, and I actually just put this if statement in because if the arguments or the precision, the second argument, is equal to 0, it's kind of not, it's, in my opinion, wasn't really as relevant to the beast challenge. So I just returned the native to fixed and then turned it into a string because what it's saying is it's just, if it's 0, just give me the whole number. So if we step over that,
so if it's 0, so for example, so if you had 0.615 and you put 0, then what would you expect? You expect 1, right?
Oh crap, you got me.
So this doesn't work.
Yeah,
does it?
That is an edge case. No, it's not going to work. It's just going to return. No, actually, it probably will because it's the native to fix. Let's
try it.
No, it's not going to work because sorry guys, let me just get to this.
Because in Accounting.js, the default precision is 0.
Yeah, so 0.615.toFixed. Let's see. Okay, so that returns 1. So mine should technically return 1 too. 0.6150. Yeah.
Oh, it does. Okay. You might want to have a test case for that.
But yeah, that's an edge case that I actually should have incorporated. So it is relevant, and I messed up on that one.
That's fine. Okay, so go back to your sources so we can look at the code.
Yeah.
Or sorry, you can go back into the debugger.
Okay.
The other thing I was curious about is, so some people may not know this that are watching, but when you're inside of a function, you can access the arguments that are passed in with the arguments. Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
That has James. Why did you create an extra variable called args?
Yeah, and you know what? Let me just get this out there for everybody. I'm happy that Gordon's asking these questions because I want him to be really tough on me because it's just the process of getting better. And I really didn't have to do that, and I don't know why I actually did, but I thought maybe in the if statement it might be a little bit better. But honestly, looking at it, it's like 5 extra characters, so I could have probably just passed that in with the bracket value for and specified which position I wanted to check on the arguments.
Okay. Yeah, I point this stuff out because this tends to be a problem for a lot of programmers, not just beginners.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even more so with advanced developers, is they want to, and I don't think this is happening, but they want to do like extraneous unnecessary crap. And James, we've talked about this a lot too. It's like extraneous unnecessary crap doesn't make you look smart. It makes you look dumb, and it also makes your code really hard to read because people are like, this must be used somewhere, but it's not, right? And when you have all these things that people think, you're taking an extra step ostensibly for a reason, but when that rule breaks, you take extra steps for no reason, people stop trusting you. And
yeah.
so it's like the enough is more kind of thing.
Yeah, and a thing that I've learned too throughout this whole process with watching code is, mainly it's just like you said, it's so important to keep your code readable and simple to an extent where anyone can come into your code base and with a little bit of time, they could understand things very simply, rather than just looking at it and being like, whoa, this is just too much. I can't can't even process it.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is a small issue though. So
yeah,
this is a very small issue. So let's keep going.
So one of the first things that I do is I want to take whatever value has been passed in, and I want to turn it to a string. Okay. So that's the immediate thing, because by design, we want to work and manipulate a string. So okay. That was the first pretty much requirement. The second requirement, or the second thing that I did was I wanted to differentiate and basically split the element at the decimal. So by doing the string value dot split, it's a prototype method. I'm actually splitting and creating an array. So if we step through this, you'll see that 0 is going to be the string value, the first element of the array, and then 615 will be the first element or the second element in the array. So if you see that right here, so we basically split that out, and now I want to format the fraction. So I want to return characters based on the precision. And what I'm doing here is basically just saying get the 615 and return the character starting at 0 based on the precision. So right here, what it does is it returns format fraction as 6-1.
And split string format fraction is 6-1. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, and so yeah, go ahead.
So you had split string 1 substring. Wait, can you explain that one more time?
Yeah, so I basically, like we had said, I had split the string at the decimal point. So I have two
right, you have 0 and 6 1.
Right, yeah. And then so from there, I needed to actually, because I'm going to eventually be rounding that fraction, so I want to format it. So what I have to do is I want to split it at the precise value. And so right there, I'm extracting 6-1 to eventually append 6-1.5 and then round it later.
So split string sub 1, bracket 1 inline 10 is 615, right?
Split string 1
is the second element.
Is 615 right there.
And what does subster 0 precision do?
Subster actually returns the characters that you specify. So starting at position 0, and then until the in my situation, precision. So it's the second value. So it's going to return 0 to 2.
Okay. Okay.
So
cool.
Yeah. And so then from there, I have something that I'd use later on. I get the format fraction dot length. And so that is 2.
Format fraction dot length.
So that's the format fraction, what we just picked up on.
Oh, okay. So it's the number of characters and
yeah, it's the number of characters exactly.
why is it called fraction?
I was doing some like research on not research, but I was looking at like the integer and decimal point, and actually I guess that past the 0 or past the decimal point is technically called a fraction. So I just named it that way just to try to be explicit.
Okay. Yeah, I asked because I think for the average person, they don't think of a decimal as a fraction, but I think so that could be confusing.
Yeah, it definitely could be.
But for in programming, I think Nate said he did the same thing, and that's fine.
Gotcha. Okay, so from there I get the fraction length, and now we are into I want to move the decimal to round the fraction based on the precision. So what this does, move decimal, gets the format fraction, which is 6.1, plus appends the decimal point, and then also adds the end of the previous split string 1.
I see.
And it grabs the 5 value essentially, because I'm passing in the 2. So if you see that here, and we scroll over, move decimal now equals 61.5. Format fraction equals 61. And then it just returns like the split string. Okay. And then that precision. So from there, what I do I just want to round it. And so I convert it to a number, and then do the native to fixed. So it just returns that closest integer. And so and then it turns it back into a string. So,
but doesn't to fixed already return a string?
Yeah, you know what, it does.
Okay.
It does. It really, yeah. Awesome. Good catch. I didn't even think like that. Okay, so I can actually remove that. That's a good note.
It's fine. You can keep going.
Yeah, so what this basically does now, when I say I want to round it, var round decimal, it turns into 62. And so now I want to start formatting the number for the final result, because we now have manipulated the decimal to round it based on the precision. And what I'm going to do here is I actually have to check to see if there are any leading zeros that were removed by the number conversion. And so I create a new array that checks the fraction length minus the round decimal length, and then I'll join any zeros to that array. And so as you can see, the fraction length and the round decimal length are the same, so nothing's going to happen. But I will I'll get into an edge case where that actually happens. So then I just check if the fraction length is less than, and if that doesn't return true, then we go to this else statement. And this else statement formats the string to the final result. So we take the original value of the split string 0, which is 0 in fact. Then we concatenate the decimal, any value for the padded fraction, which is not applicable in this situation, and then the round decimal, which is 6.2, and then we return the final result, which is 0.62.
Okay. Okay, cool. I think since we've quite a bit of time has passed.
Oh yeah,
for the edge case, can you point it out, and then you have the link. People can go play with this.
Yeah.
And see how it works.
Yeah. Absolutely. So this edge case right here, it should return 1.00201. And so this is after I pass in 1.002005. So it takes a precision of 5. So we just basically want this to be rounded to 1. And what was happening with me, which caused me to start the padding, and actually it's funny because I've read through the Accounting.js library so much that the toFix the add zeros, the new array precision blah 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 dot join the zeros is actually something from I recalled that this was something that the author of the library does when he formats the column and pads the column. So yeah, it was something that when I realized it, I was like, oh, I can just do this padding thing that I've read numerous times in Accounting.js. So anyway, what was happening when I was rounding or splitting and then going and converting to the number was I was losing those padded zeros. And so that was my edge case. And another edge case also that I recommend anybody trying is if you put in like the precision of 10 when there's not 10 values, to try and see if they can get a value that comes out like this, because that padding also helps in the reverse case as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so if you're up to date with stuff and you want to have that as an exercise, check it out. And I think the main thing too is that I think there is a little bit confusion. James, can you go to the question, like the exercise description?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I just want to be really clear that the objective is to show it's to have a better accounting.toFixed method, not to improve on the native number prototype toFixed. So I think some people may be confused about that. So I modified a little bit to be more clear. So I have accounting.toFixed everywhere. So I just want to point that out for people that are looking at it in case I was unclear. That's my fault.
So I know I've taken up quite a bit of time, and I won't, take anybody else's, time. I'm gonna quit screen sharing, but hopefully that was okay, and you guys, learned maybe a little bit, or enjoyed it. So.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks for sharing. And I think that if I were gonna continue doing the code review, I would just run through a bunch of cases, look for dead code, the code that's like unnecessary.
Yeah. Okay.
There's probably quite a bit in there, and it's not like obvious. I can't just look at it. I'd have to run a couple times to find it. And then the other thing that I might improve on. No one likes to talk about this, but it's usually always can be improved, is variable naming.
Yeah.
So because that makes things so much clearer, and also just having fewer variables if you can make things a lot clearer too. And this can be helpful for other people that are doing the challenge, because I saw some of the other solutions were quite long, and so just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's always room for improvement. There's always something to learn from. So I appreciate it, and I actually think I got off a little easy. I took up too much time, so you didn't get to grill me too much.
No, it's good. It was good. Yeah, and we'll see other solutions too. I'm sure someone will think of a better, a more interesting way, or a simpler way. I shouldn't say interesting.
For sure.
Or interesting and clever or bad. Simple is good.
Simple's great.
Okay, cool. James, do you have any other comments before we move on to another question?
No, but if anybody else sees something or wants to pick it apart, please be my guest. I am always open to improving it. And I was saying never, I guess, with Gordon, don't take it easy on me. So if anybody else sees anything, lay it on me.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Everyone. Great. Thanks, James. Okay, so that was fun. So we'll move on to open questions now. And raise your hand if you have a question. All right, Kenny.
Jason, thanks for James. Thanks for that. That was super interesting. Quick question on the assignment is that if you ask something like improve upon toFixed, should you be using toFixed within your code?
So yeah, so like for example, in accounting.js, they have a toFixed method, right? And they use toFixed inside of their improved version, but they use it just to turn something to a string. They don't use it for they're trying to fix the rounding irregularities, right? So it's fine. The whole point was like you could have the exact same code as in accounting.js, except instead of using exponential or scientific notation, you use decimal string manipulation.
Got it. Okay.
Right. So yeah, so maybe I feel like that wasn't super clear. Was that confusing?
Yeah, I didn't know that we were trying to improve accounting.js toFixed. I was just I just wrote it from scratch. Like if I had to write toFixed using string manipulation, how would I write it?
Yeah,
that's sort of the goal.
Yeah, I think that doesn't. You got most of the logic, so it doesn't really. It's not a big deal that you did that, right? Because the string manipulation is the part I wanted you to do. Yeah, and that's the same.
Yeah. Okay.
So it doesn't matter. I wouldn't stress out about it too much.
Got it.
Cool. Any other questions, Kenny?
Nope.
No. Okay. You should stay on the hangout after the end because I want to talk to you about something.
Okay.
I want to give you more work, more stuff.
Okay. Sounds good.
Wait, I think I already. Okay, we'll talk about it more. Did I already tell you? Oh wait, I already told you. You said you're busy. It's okay. Okay, we'll move on to the next part. Yeah, I for the students that have like been up to date with everything, I've been giving them more work. So there are benefits to keeping up to date with not just the videos but the challenges. So if you're up to date with the challenges, then I'll give you more stuff to do. Sorry, I already told you, Kenny. Okay, we'll move on to the next person. Anyone else have a question? Raise your hand. Bartek? Jason? Nate? Ben? Nate, do you have a question? Thomas? Okay. All right, so it doesn't seem like there are any questions. Does anyone have... what could we do? I guess I could end it early, or we can do something else. Like I could... One thing that's worked, that's been kind of interesting is for me to quiz people. That could be something we could try. But I guess I can just stop broadcasting since for people that are watching now, there won't really be much benefit. Is any okay? Okay, Bartek has a question.
Yeah, it's not really. Hey everyone, I'm not really up to date with what you guys were doing right now, but it was a question referring to the toFixed, which is a native JavaScript function from what I understood. So basically, what you were, and I will have to go back and like look at the challenge they had, but basically, we're improving. The author is using a native toFixed. And he was looking to improve that, and you guys found that it could be improved even further. Was this the basic?
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, like I said, I'm not up to date with the latest challenge. But just to kind of like a comment, I was kind of glad to see the public announcement. I've been trying to rewrite the MVC for like the longest time. And I got to the point where I could understand, like I really understand different methods the to the MVC with like jQuery, but I just really can't. I've approached the app like writing with the handlebars, starting with like templates to the simplest functions, and there's always something that pops up that I can't move on past and kind of all glue it together. So I think at this point it'll be just a good idea for me to maybe move on with the content and maybe go back to it later before I finish rewriting it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like I said, you should look at it as I think as long as you look at it as an optional thing, it's fine. So for example, like I'd be interested, I want to ask Ben about this because Ben rebuilt it, and
Mhm.
I'd be curious to like see what his like
Yeah,
the
so
contrast
I
experience.
rebuilt the like the basic practical JavaScript, and it took me not as long, but it was super helpful. So like when I finished it, I really thought I've learned a lot. Not sure why I can't rebuild it with jQuery. So Ben, what's your
Yeah, so Ben, I remember before we started broadcasting, I asked you, and you said you'd rebuilt the 2MVC jQuery. What was like the hardest part of that, or was it? Yeah, just how was that experience?
So rebuilding that, I think biggest part for me was breaking it down into smaller problems. I tend to, when I start something, try and just like tackle it all at once. And so I started with the practical JavaScript version, just like and then use those methods, and I built on those, and then I bound those methods to events and just kind of like built in pieces. So yeah, that was I can see, I think I see like why people, when they try and build that, they get overwhelmed. But I would recommend starting like practical JavaScript version and then just like build on top of it, like super basic. And that's what I did. I just started like my like all my to-do list was just all in the console and like things like that. So yeah, I just built slowly on top of it. So it can be done.
Yeah,
Okay.
nice.
Gotcha. And then just slowly incorporating jQuery into your vanilla JS, basically.
Yeah, you can start using jQuery, I think, but I would start with, as far as the methods go, like adding, deleting, do that all in the console first, and then bind those events when you click them. Like you bind an event, I like to first just like console log like clicked, just to make sure it works. Just like really, like the smaller you can break it down, the better, and then it's less confusing.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. But Bartek, did you try to do that, like break things down, or were you just looking at the whole thing and like, I don't know where to start?
No. So I did. So I actually had like a whole document where I broke down like line by line and do that like it should kind of methodology, like like this line should do this and that. But then I found myself to be just kind of, instead of thinking about it, I was just trying to like understand what the it should required. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to just like trying to figure out how the whole app should work or like a method should work. Instead, I was just trying to figure out, oh, okay, like what did I mean? Because I wrote it a while ago. I was like, okay, like what did I mean by like this line, this should do this, and yeah. So I did break it down. Like I guess the hardest part was for me is just like I guess templating was something that I usually stop at, right? So let's say like when you build the first like create method, right? So like I built the create and I built the destroy method because they were pretty simple. And then going from there, if I wanted to do like a template for it, you would need like a list element to be added to work with some other methods, right? Especially when you had like an event target. and you needed like the closest element on that list. Yeah, I would just kind of get lost when I got, when I got into some more difficult, more complex methods that required, other methods to work together.
I see.
That's yeah. But yeah, I think I like the idea of just kind of starting with going back to the app that I wrote in Vanilla.js and maybe trying to incorporate some of the jQuery in there. I think that might be helpful.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think the other thing that I say a lot that is really relevant to this is that a really good way to review the content really quickly, see you, Ben, and to be really concise is to review the code, because the code is just, if you print it out, it's just one page, and so you can just like print it out, leave it. Oh, Ben was talking to James. So if you just print the code out and like leave it on your desk, you can just review it all the time, and it just becomes second nature. That can be a really condensed, fast way to review stuff, because I think a lot of students will like want to rewatch the videos, and that takes so much time. Not a great use of time. When you've already know the stuff, right? So you really need to just review it and just glance at it. And that could be a really good way. So the stuff that you know really well, like all the code, I hope from watching code, is stuff that you just almost know by heart. You know it better than any other code you've ever seen. The same way, like if you worked at a company and you're responsible for like a certain feature, you kind of know it better than anyone else. That becomes really important, because you will look back on it and reuse things from these code bases all the time. And so the more familiar you are with it, the better. And I think as you get more familiar with it, like, yeah, rebuilding stuff is, if that's something you want to do, and like I've been saying, it's optional, but if it's something that you want to do, it becomes a whole lot easier, because, I don't know, maybe you want to use the closest method or something in jQuery, or you want to use, plain, you don't need to use jQuery to do that. You can use plain JavaScript to do that as well. But at least you know what has to be done. And then once you know what has to be done, then you can figure out different ways of doing it. I think I can't, I'm not really good at thinking on the spot, but I think you can even get away with not doing any of that stuff. Like there are many, many ways to do it, but as long as you know the elemental base thing that has to be done, if that's crystal clear for you, you can Google the implementation, right? And yeah, and you should treat it like an open notes exercise. Don't like not Google stuff. That's silly.
Cool.
Okay, cool. Wait, so where are you at right now with the content?
You know what? So like right now, I just kind of moved away from just rewatching videos, and I was just going, through each method. I was just looking at the sheet that we basically followed for jQuery, right? And I was just inspecting each and every method. So I feel like by now I know them really well, and I know what they're supposed to do. So I basically stopped right there, and I've been just working on rebuilding the app.
Okay.
And like I tried one thing, it didn't quite work right. So like I was just trying like, to start it from different angles, sort of. So, but yeah, I do like the idea of just kind of going back to like Vanilla.js version and see if I can incorporate some jQuery in there. Especially, I think like jQuery had some more maybe clever ways of doing things as opposed to Vanilla.js. Maybe not clever, but different, especially with like events and targets. So I'll see if I can incorporate that, and maybe just start working on the like the tiny on the testing that's coming up next.
Yeah, so I'd recommend, and I talked about I guess in a different topic on the YouTube video, I talked about how to split your learning time with like
I
other
saw
things
it.
you want to
Yeah.
learn. But within like watching code, like how to split your time there is a different question. I think
Mhm.
in terms of like the exercise and review, you want to constantly have maybe like 20% of the time reviewing stuff. You can't like
Mhm.
do 100% new stuff. It's very hard to, you
Yeah.
can't even keep track of where you are. But, don't spend like all your time with the to-do MVC over and over and over and over again. You should
Mhm.
you should go back. You can always go back, right? So if you just I would suggest continuing, keep going, and then in your 20% of time you can review the things that you feel like you need to go back to.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good idea.
I have a question for you, and maybe Ben too. What has been your experience with testing, and like what like do you like Bartek? Do you know anything about testing already, or like what's
You
your
know what?
person?
Yeah, so I've done a few of the testing videos that come after jQuery a while
Okay.
ago. So I get the general idea. And before I started doing watching code, I did something called like cones or something like that, where they use testing to like kind of check on whether you had like correct answers or not. So I do get the general idea, but yeah, I'm really curious to see where watching code will take it. So
Yeah, I mentioned that because that way of thinking, the way you split things into really tiny pieces, you see it
Mhm.
kind of done systematically when you
yeah,
write tests first. So
Mhm.
it's a way to kind of force you to code like that.
okay,
So that could be a good, and yeah, like Ben said, the testing portion will make remaking to do MVC a lot easier.
cool. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was just stuck in this like limbo. I was just like, no, I have to do it. Like I can't move past on if I don't rebuild it. Like I just made it like a mission for myself, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it'll be a good idea to finally maybe split my time, like you said. Like I'll continue working on it, but move forward with the new content as well.
Yeah. Perfect.
I would recommend just finishing the testing and then you'll go back and just kill that remaking. It'll make it a lot easier, I think.
Cool.
Huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Sounds good.
second that. That's the exact approach that I took. I did the TDD, and I used everything I learned from testing, and used the initial assertions. I think is initially what you called it, right, Gordon?
I think
Or the
so.
practical JS, those sentences that you wrote out, it's like this is what we're gonna try to do in this section.
Mhm.
So I flipped those into tests, and then that's how I actually started writing the code. And then when I started doing that, it was pretty easy.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah. That's really interesting. That's good
Yeah.
advice from Ben and Kenny. I didn't think of that, but I think thinking about Ben's advice and Kenny's advice, I think it makes so much sense because of the way of thinking more than
Mhm.
any specific. I don't think you learn any coding like feature
Right.
in the testing series that makes it easier. It's the way you code that makes
Mhm.
it easier. So
Yeah, no, I get that. I think it's super. It's probably one of the biggest challenges for many beginners that I've encountered. They like know all that stuff, but they can't really apply the logic or like figure out, break down the problem into small pieces. I've seen that being pretty important and a difficult, skill to learn.
yeah, it's hard. It's hard for everybody all the time. It's always the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I still struggle with it.
Mhm.
And then I think as you get more experienced, you tend to take shortcuts that then end up hurting you. So you think you can skip like 3 or 4 steps, but then you realize you messed up your assumptions. So it's a constant battle to. I always prefer to err on the side of like ridiculously small, kind of stupidly simple increments, because you can always combine tests and delete them, right? So that ensures that you have this super methodical, like incredibly, you almost want to be robotic with how you approach
Mhm.
things, and know that each little thing you do, you can do it, right? There's just psychologically you feel better, versus I think people as they get better, they tend to be overly ambitious and then forget that like missing really stupid stuff. You never avoid that. That's always happens. So you might as well confine the area where you can make stupid mistakes, so it's very obvious what you've made, and you do that by having the smallest test cases you possibly can, and then go back. If you realize you have like 5 redundantly stupid test cases, you can merge them very easily, and that's how I recommend people do it versus try to combine them all at once. That will usually screw you up.
Cool. Yeah, we'll apply that. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks for the question. So Anthony had a question. What is the basic approach to testing for DOM stuff? So in the test-driven development series, we've been testing like, I guess like the simplest form of functions. You have inputs, you put in arguments, and you expect those arguments to have a lead to a specific return value from that function. So basic input output kind of testing. With DOM apps, it's harder because when you have the browser and you're updating the page, you need to actually make sure that things on the page happened as you expected them to. And there are a lot of different strategies, and we will see that in a future series. That's the next testing thing I want to add to your tool belt, I guess. But the basic strategy is, you have to figure out, did it actually do what I expected it to do? Not did my function return what I expected it to return, but did the page change in the way I expected it to change? And then when you have that page, this extra thing to deal with, which is this page, you have to then do things like either reset the page with each test, otherwise your tests conflict and stuff like that. So you have a different set of concerns, which makes it much more complicated. And I don't think you can effectively do DOM testing without really being incredibly comfortable with the kind of testing that you do in our intro testing series. So good question. Stay tuned. And Anthony, if you browse on GitHub, you can probably find good examples if you're anxious. You can read and you use like the code reading skills to kind of, I'm sure you could figure it out.
Definitely.
But good question. That's on my list next of things I need to tell you. I contrast that with most things people want me to teach. I don't want to teach you, but this thing you asked about, Anthony, is like really important. I absolutely want to teach you. So that's good. Okay, so we're just at time, and so thank you all for joining. I apologize if you're not fully up to date with all the videos in the premium membership, or if you're like in Practical JS, this office hours wasn't as useful for you. So sorry about that, but that's why you should come with your own questions. So thanks for coming, and sorry if it wasn't super useful. And hope to see you next week. And as usual, if you want to chat and ask questions off the air, then call in now. This is your chance. And I'll stick around for the next 30 minutes, and you can ask random questions and troll me if you want. Okay. See ya. Oh, hey Jack, I just saw you on the YouTube chat. Jack, call in. You can do off-air questions. Okay. Thanks everyone on YouTube for watching. I'll see you next week.